Welcome to the Get Your Pink Back Project. I'm your host, Dr. Christelle Oliver Dussault, and this is your space to pause, breathe, and return to yourself. One story, one insight, one conversation at a time. Let's begin. Welcome back. Today, I'll share with you my personal journey, my ever-evolving pink journey. When I was thinking which direction to go with this episode, I thought it might be helpful to paint a picture of who I was before becoming a mum. Some of you listening know me, others don't. So, who was I before becoming a mum? I would have described myself as strong, independent, and full of life. I'm someone who's always put a lot of passion into what I do, my work, my relationships, my hobbies. I had a fulfilled and very vibrant life. I worked as a family physician in a busy practice, had great friendships, a wonderful social life, and a loving relationship with my husband. I lived independently, with purpose and direction. I thought I was prepared for motherhood, having cared for so many women throughout their pregnancy, postpartum phase, having cared for infants and children. I knew the rhythms of my life would change, my focus, my priorities, but in all honesty, I wasn't prepared for the shift that would occur. I wasn't prepared for the guilt. I didn't realize the unrealistic expectations I'd set myself. I also didn't realize how much I valued my independence, my alone time, and the role that I had within my community. So let me take you back to 2019 when my first daughter was born. Those first few weeks are a blur. There were incredible moments of bonding, staring at this beautiful little being we just created, in awe of the way she slept, breathed, moved. There were sleepless nights and worrying, asking myself, am I doing this right? And we also happened to be packing up our apartment at the same time. When she was 4 weeks old, we moved into my mother-in-law's home. When she was 6 weeks old, my husband moved to the west coast of Canada for his new job, and I followed 4 weeks later. During that time, my grandmother also passed away. So a lot of big life changes in a very small amount of time. No time to process or digest what was unfolding. When I arrived to the west coast of Canada, my maternity leave, which wasn't really maternity leave, and I think for most women it isn't. It really shouldn't be called leave. It's hard work. It's constant, no breaks. For me, I was busy trying to look after my little girl, but I was also dealing with filling immigration paperwork, getting our driving licenses sorted, transferring my medical license to Canada from Ireland. She came everywhere I went, including job interviews. During that time, I kind of felt invisible. I felt I wasn't able to go as I pleased. I felt guilty for wanting time to myself, to the point that I barely knew how to ask. I deeply craved space, yet felt this yearning to be close to my daughter and felt off if I wasn't near her. I remember talking to my husband about this and explaining that I was starting to feel jealous of his commute to work as it gave him 30 minutes to himself. Then came the task of finding childcare. I never realized how much fear I would feel trusting someone else I barely knew to care for my daughter. I eventually found a nanny, and I opened up my practice in early 2020. This was just a few weeks before all our worlds would change, and we were faced with a lot of uncertainty in the face of a global pandemic. During that time, my days were spent caring for patients, reassuring them as best I could, my evenings in virtual meetings, trying to stay up to date with the quickly changing landscape of the virus, which left very little time for my family and for me. My nights were spent worrying, feeling lost, feeling overwhelmed. I lost myself in my work. I used up my empathy tank on my patients, and I had very little left for my family. I never anticipated the guilt I'd feel between trying to be a present mother and a polished professional. I missed my village, my close friends, many of whom were also first-time mothers, navigating similar struggles, motherhood, isolation, and their careers. I longed to meet them in person for a coffee, to have them over, to see each other in our raw, unpolished selves. I longed for the safety to unravel without having to put on a mask every time I went out in public. Not just a physical mask because of the pandemic, but you know the type of mask, the one that we'd all put out to make ourselves presentable to the world. Fast forward to 2021, and we find ourselves moving again, relocating to where we live today, starting over once again, and looking for new work, looking for childcare, trying to find a more sustainable way to be both a physician and a mum. My second daughter was born in 2022. I took a bit more time. I asked for help, and something that I've always struggled with, but once again, I fell into familiar rhythms. I was trying to do it all. I constantly felt like I was running on empty, not stopping to take a breath. I felt like I was just getting by in one aspect of my life. And if I was doing well in another, it meant that another part of my life was failing. Um, Parts of me were holding on to and yearning for my old self. I was mourning the woman I once was, but I was also ignoring a lot of the changes that had happened. When my youngest was 9 months old, I started to break out into hives. It started around my abdomen, and they would come and last for a couple hours and then fade. I didn't think much of it at the time. It was summertime. They kept coming and spreading. But the fact that they kept coming back was concerning. And then I started to develop severe lip swelling, thinking a very bad lip filler job or like you've been stung by a bee on your lips. At the time, I wasn't really paying attention to the stressors in my life. I convinced myself I had breast cancer. I happened to have a lymph node under my left arm, and some very rare forms of cancer have skin presentations. And sometimes, knowing too much isn't always helpful. And I also kept flashing back to a patient I had in my early career. I'd met her when she was 34, along with her 9-month-old baby girl, which was the same age as my youngest. She'd presented not with a rash, but with a lymph node under her arm and was quickly diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. So my mind spiraled. Luckily, no underlying cause was found. And eventually the penny dropped. I had to work on me. I had to navigate the stresses in my life from a healthier place. And with that work, the hives eased. As did the chest pain and palpitations I had been ignoring for months. Motherhood cracked me open. It taught me the importance of the pause. It showed me how awful I was at setting boundaries and really struggled to say no. During this time of self-discovery and renewal, I came across a book by Dr. Gabor Mate called When the Body Says No, The Hidden Cost of Stress. And all of a sudden, everything started to make sense. You see, our minds, our nervous system is connected to our other bodily systems. So to our immune system, to our skin, to our gut, to our endocrine system, which is our hormonal system. And it has a way of telling us when things just aren't right. And if we're willing to listen, it will point us in the right direction. The more I started to listen to my body, the more I started to recognize certain patterns and that things needed to change. The change wasn't quick. It wasn't overnight. It was slow. And it took a whole lot of self-reflection and realignment. Personal growth emerged as I healed and faced some of the limiting beliefs that I had set myself. Entering motherhood, I had this mindset of I must and I can do it all on my own. I shouldn't need help. I should be able to do this. I put myself on a pedestal, telling myself, well, I am different. I can do this. I have the training to navigate this. And a lot of women, most women, I think we all do this. And recognizing that wasn't a weakness as I thought it was, but in time I came to realize it was wisdom. It was wisdom for me to recognize the areas that lit me up and the areas that I was less resourced in. Because we were never meant to do this alone. And a lot of these limiting beliefs we set ourselves, or that I'd set myself, they bring on feelings of guilt, feelings of shame for struggling and for needing help. I at times was also met with some resistance when I tried asking for help. One of the key learning things I learned throughout this resistance is that I needed to leave the guilt and the shame behind and readjust my mindset. I needed to accept that it's okay to ask for help and that it takes a village to raise a family, and that you will need a tremendous amount of support if you're going to try to have a career at the same time. I also realized that there isn't one size fits all. You can't give 100% in each facet of your life. If you do or attempt to, you will burn out. And I burnt out. I wear many professional hats, and one of these is in the realm of psychoeducation. There is an exercise we do within that work that I found extremely helpful to me. And this exercise entails writing down a typical day from morning to nighttime. It's a little bit of an energy audit. Beside each item, you write down whether that activity or item that you have to do energizes you, fills your cup of tea, or if it depletes you. So when I did this exercise, most of my days were filled with depletion. Everything on that list, well, the majority depleted me. So I was faced with a choice, either to change my mindset or change the way I organize my day and my week. And it was really a mix of the two that helped me, making sure that I penciled time for myself in the week. I realized that all my to-dos, everything in my schedule was around everybody else. I didn't make any time or any space for myself. I also realized that some of the more tedious things on my list needed to be interspersed with some more energizing or rewarding type activities. So, for example, evening routine. Who else has struggled to get their children to bed? I find the bath time, brushing of the hair, brushing of the teeth, putting on the pajamas and running around while they don't want to put on their pajamas extremely draining, because I usually have very little left in the tank by the time it gets to that time of day. But bedtime stories, those I absolutely love. So focusing on the bonding and the cuddles I get during story time, that gets me through the madness of the evening routine. I mentioned that making time for myself was really important. And I think that's something as mothers we forget. We don't tend to make it to our to-do list. And if we do manage to make it our to-do list, we're at the very bottom. So scheduling myself in has been extremely helpful. We all have our own quirks and our own mix of things we do just for us. It took some time for me to realize what I was missing, because when you're in the depths of the chaos, you sometimes forget who you are. You forget what you enjoyed in the first place. So it started with very simple things for me, going for a walk by myself, noticing what was around, what was in nature. It meant opening up a book again and starting to read, something that I'd always loved to do and completely forgot. And something I found quite hard at first. I was just so exhausted, but eventually reading a couple of pages turned into a couple of chapters. And then it became a habit that once the kids are down, the nights that they do go down at a reasonable hour and everything is done, I lie down in my bed. I get a few moments to myself to read, to escape. I'm someone who's always been very creative, and I'd ignored that part of me for a very long time. It took reflecting back on what I enjoyed as a child and trying to dive into those things. I love to dance, and I found a group of mums that enjoy the same thing. And so for 1 hour a week, initially, I got to meet other mums who have the same passions, and we get to dance, let loose without any care. We'll leave our cares at the door. That has been a lifeline. Around the same time, something interesting happened as I started to get back to me. And this to me was a sign of, oh, I'm back. Here she is. So one morning I was driving up Highland Road on the way back from the school drop off and listening to the music in the car as I usually do. But for the first time in years, and I still can't remember how long I'd lost this, I started to see movement, choreography, color. Synesthesia, or more specifically chromesthesia, is something I've always experienced. And if you're a dancer listening to this, you know exactly what I mean. We often get our best ideas when driving or doing a mundane task that doesn't involve much thinking. I bring this up because I had lost this, and I didn't even realize I'd lost it until it came back. It was like a breath of fresh air. The joy I felt in that moment, the realization that the me I had known was still there and starting to reemerge, was invigorating and brought me a lot of hope. During the pandemic, so going back a few years, I didn't realize how much the social isolation affected me. I'm someone who's always enjoyed the company of my friends, and I invest a lot in my friendships. Not only were we separated by a continent and an ocean, we also didn't even have the ability to make new bonds within the pandemic. At the time, Zoom, FaceTime, WhatsApp, they were lifelines. But now that things have opened up and I've had the chance to connect with people where I live, it's shown me the importance of that human-to-human contact and connection. So where am I now? I still have good days. I still have bad days. But I'm better at recognizing when I'm feeling overwhelmed, and I'm including myself in my to-do list. Introspection has allowed me to know myself, know my new self. I'm clear on what matters to me. I'm clear on what my priorities are. Connecting with other women, speaking about my experience and listening to theirs, reconnecting with activities that once brought me joy, scheduling me time, moving my body and getting out of my head, particularly when it's a bit of a storm up there, and supporting my senses, as silly or simple that may sound, nourishing what I see, what I hear, what I smell, what I touch and feel. Those are all things that have helped and continue to help. They ground me. Because being a mom can be extremely rewarding, but it's really hard. It can make you see life in a different light. And it shows you facets of yourself you didn't know were there. I cherish the moments of connection with my girls. I'm learning to let go, to ride the waves of chaos that come with motherhood, and take things one day at a time. A big part of why I'm sharing my story and inviting others to share theirs is to break down the invisible barriers we've all internalized, the ones that society still holds us to. The more we name and share these experiences, the more we normalize the transformation of matrescence and the complexity of becoming a mother. We begin to honor the transformation of matrescence for what it truly is, a rebirth, not a loss. So, if any of this spoke to you today, please get in touch and share your story. Let me know if you've experienced similar struggles. What's helped you navigate your matrescence? In our next episode, I will interview our first guest. And each episode, there will be an everyday extraordinary woman to share her journey. Until next time. The information shared on the Get Your Pink Back Project podcast is for educational and general informational purposes only. Although I am a medical doctor, I am not providing medical, psychological, or professional advice specific to you or any individual. This podcast does not establish a physician-patient relationship, and the content should not be used as a substitute for personalized medical care, mental health support, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your own physician, mental health professional, or qualified healthcare provider with any questions you have regarding your health or well-being. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If this episode spoke to you, I'd love for you to share it with another woman who might need it. And if you feel called, leave a rating or review. It helps grow this community. Remember, you are not lost, you are becoming. I'll see you next time on the Get Your Pink Back Project podcast.